Meanwhile, Leeds United have parted ways with Marcelo Bielsa. They're 2 points above the drop gap, but he's left his mark on the club and the city, of course.
No question about it. And look, people who don't always follow, Bielsa's developed this sort of, hipster, this idea that for a long time before we really came back to Europe at Marseille and Athletic Bilbao, people were like, oh, what's the big deal with Bielsa? And, if you said like, well, actually, he's got pretty radical ideas. He plays the game differently and people love him and he's kind of an oddball character. And, you're accused, you're trying to be hipster, you're trying to show how smart you are. It's kind of like, when you're in school and there's always like the one weird kid who like listens to music that nobody else listens to and then it becomes pop and he says, well, I was listening to that 10 years ago. But Bielsa's mainstream now. Bielsa's mainstream. And the number of people who look at him and talk about how he has influenced them, how he has changed their lives is pretty remarkable. I love people who do things differently and attain success. This season hasn't worked out. It's not just him. They've had a ton of injuries this year as well.
Yeah, completely. The worst hit teams in terms of injury. You rarely see such a strong connection between a manager, especially a foreign one, who doesn't even speak English to the fans. So you can't even relate to what he says. Such a strong connection between a set of fans and a manager, just purely on passions and the way your team plays. Incredible.
Speaking of Leeds, pointing out the reporting that Jesse Marsch, former Leipzig manager, is in pole position to replace Bielsa. Just a question of work permits. Does that make sense to you?
I see the similarities, especially in terms of intensity and pressing and counter-pressing. No problem. Is it a bit of a gamble, considering where Leeds are, and he has to keep them up and save them from potentially going down? I think it is a bit, considering he's got no experience whatsoever of English football. But I like it. I like the idea. I like to go and get someone like
Probably
him.
Speaks better English than Bielsa.
It certainly. So maybe the message will go through better, and he will transmit it better to the dressing room. I think it's a dressing room that is ready to learn. We saw that with Bielsa, that adapts quickly, and I think that can work. At Leipzig, maybe it was. I just hope he would have learned from Leipzig in the sense that maybe you can't just walk in and go straight, all guns blazing on what they have to do, and don't be a bit more adaptable.
It's an interesting one to remember. I think a lot of his issues at Leipzig were that he was replacing a legend. I say a legend, somebody who's younger than he is, but obviously Julien Nagelsmann is
he's a better coach than him as well.
And obviously here he's replacing Bielsa, so he's replacing another legend. If I'm Leeds, I bring in Jesse Marsch. I somehow send a strong message, which is, you're here because we believe in you long term.
Yeah.
You will keep us up. But if you don't keep us up, that's fine, because we're going to come back stronger next year. And you will have time to go and build whatever it is that you're building, take all your history from the Red Bull organization and whatever else, and we believe in you. I think that has to be the approach with Marsch, rather than, oh, look, he's a specialist at avoiding relegation, because obviously he isn't. Jesse Marsch is somebody who's always coached, or always, but since Salzburg, has obviously coached very strong teams. This is not the case here. So, but it's interesting, and he'd be the second American manager in the Premier League. Both of them, sadly, Princeton guys.
Oh, you're not happy with that.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.